Hey guys, it's your girl, Kelsey Nicole. So you guys know that we are here to talk about Tory Lanez's motion for a new trial that was recently just filed. Now, it took me a few days to make this video because, of course, I was waiting for the full documents to come out so that I can see for myself what the reasons were, what was listed for why they were using these reasons, etc. So what I will say is that I do believe that his lawyers did a great job filing this motion. I mean, they laid everything out pretty clearly of why he deserves a new trial. So I am not going to be putting up every document and going over everything that they have written down. This was 84 pages, and I do not want this video to be long, but you guys know how I do. I did go through all 84 pages. I read everything. I took my notes and I simplified everything down. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. So they start the motion off with what allegedly went down that night. Then they get to the part where they talk about where Megan told police that she had stepped on glass. And a few days later, she changed the story and said that Tory did it and claimed that she had been scared to admit it at first. But as the investigation continued on, conflicting stories came out from other witnesses that did not match Megan's. No one except Megan could say who fired the shots. No one except Megan heard Dan Speed dance. The shots came from Kelsey's side of the vehicle, and immediately after the incident, Kelsey and Megan ended their business and friendship relationship, although neither seems to really know why that is. Kelsey claims it was because Megan didn't protect her from social media attacks, that she was the one who shot her. And Megan claims it was because Kelsey took hush money to not be on her side, which Kelsey denies that she did. And this is actually believable since Kelsey has done everything but be silent. She was just as active, vocal, and lyrically present from then up into trial time, just as Megan was. And seeing as how she claimed all she did was try and protect Megan from Tory that night during the argument, excuse me, and after the shooting, one has to really wonder why immediately after the shooting, Megan was kicking her out of her house, booking her a flight home that she knew she didn't have anymore thanks to her, and ending their friendship all before Kelsey even got that call from Tory in jail or met up with him the next day to so-called accept hush money and switch sides for Megan to be mad at her for that. Correct? Okay, moving on. So speaking of Kelsey, let's start with her part in this, which would be violation of the confrontation clause as to a critical witness testimony. In September 2022, 2 years after the shooting, Kelsey finally decided to break her silence and speak with the DA. Now, the story she gave them was completely different than the story the victim, Megan, gave them, which started to become a common theme throughout this trial. You would have thought that Megan and Kelsey weren't even in the same car that night, let alone involved in the same altercation that occurred, as the only statement made from both of them that matched each other was that Tory shot Megan. But where that shooting occurred, where Megan was walking when shot, who helped her, who brought her back to the car, who fought who, etc., does not match each other in the least bit. And the prosecution was well aware after and during Kelsey's interview that she was not telling the same story as Megan. And if they tried to use her as a witness, she would hurt their case and Megan's already dwindling credibility. So instead, they came up with a plan to have Kelsey come into court and invoke her Fifth Amendment right to not incriminate herself, which caused half to believe that she was guilty of the shooting and the other half to believe that she got paid to come in and change her story. Now, Kelsey was also granted immunity, which did not protect her from perjury on the stand. So she got on the stand and she confused everybody with whatever she said. But she did tell everybody that everything that she had told the DA were lies and that she never saw Tory shoot Megan, which is honestly not hard to believe because, as stated, nothing Kelsey told them matched Megan's version of events. She claimed that she had felt pressured to come in and speak, and she told them who had been pressuring her, Megan and her team. All because she wouldn't do what Megan wanted her to do. She was being threatened with sex tape releases and had Megan on shots fired, claiming that she was aware that Kelsey had been trying to snitch and tell on her, but she had people everywhere watching, and she was well aware of everything she was doing. Scaring Kelsey so much that she finally got an attorney, and not for Tory like she claimed, but for Megan and all her threats. This is where the problem comes in. Kelsey said that she felt pressured. So the DA used this statement to have that 80-minute interview of her saying that Tory was the shooter played for the jury and the court to hear. And instead of hearing anything about the DA pressuring her, we only hear about Megan and her team doing it. The DA only needed to play that part if they really wanted to prove that it wasn't them who had pressured Megan, but not the full 80-minute interview, as it halted Tory's right to a fair trial when they did so. As they were unaware, as Tory's team were unaware of this interview, they had no transcripts of it. It was just thrown into the middle of trial and allowed to be fully heard. Although everything Kelsey had said in that interview, she had just taken back on the stand. So it was no longer considered evidence. And if they were adding it as evidence now, then Kelsey had canceled out her Fifth Amendment deal, and they were allowed to confront her about the things she stated in that interview. But Kelsey had already taken the stand by the time this was played, which violated the confrontation clause, which violated Tory's right to a fair trial, as they were unable to confront her about those claims. And it makes no sense why she was even granted this deal in the first place, since we still have no idea what she was trying not to incriminate herself in. Was it just because you lied to the DA? Because that's all she claimed that she did. So here's my thing about this one. I have to wonder, what was the defense's plan with Kelsey in the first place? Because they never really questioned her about anything. They claimed that they were going to bring her back up later, but that never happened. And even if they were blindsided by this recording and everything that went down with Kelsey and the DA in court, I would think that they had some questions to ask her themselves that didn't have to do with this interview. So why did that not happen? I would have thought that the one main thing they would have hounded Kelsey on was this fight with Megan that Sean Kelly saw, and that matched the evidence photos of Kelsey taken that night. So why did that not happen? If playing that 80-minute interview canceled out her Fifth Amendment and gave Tory the right to confront her, why was this not done during trial anyway? So even if she claimed to have not recalled everything they asked her, if they had asked her anything, they still could have planted seeds in the jury's head that Megan and Kelsey were clearly trying to hide something about that night, like this fight that Kelsey only called a bump in her interview with the DA. So this is where I have to wonder if ineffective counsel should have been added to this motion, because I never understood why Kelsey was never called back to that stand and trial just continued on as if she wasn't a major part of this event or a part of the defense. Why were these photos only released after trial, but we saw nothing about them before trial or even heard much of anything about them during trial? When they did come out after trial, a lot of people got pissed off because it was very obvious that this happened from a fight with Megan, like Sean Kelly had claimed, and not an altercation with Tory, like Kelsey claimed, and Megan doesn't ever recall even happening. So since these injuries came from Megan, and Megan sustained some of her own, as we all saw from that major bump on the forehead in that ambulance, it made Sean Kelly's version of events the only one with evidence to back up his claims, uncompared to Megan and Kelsey's versions that don't match each other, and the only one who seemed to be telling the truth up until trial, that is. So if I were the defense, I would have pushed this issue heavily, but that was not done, and that is a problem to me. So let's move on to the next issue. Oh, but wait, hold on. Let's not forget that Kelsey never pressed charges against Tory for assault. She meets up with him the next day without a care in the world, just like she took that phone call from jail without a care in the world, and is even having conversation about Megan not speaking to her to the point that he even offers to allegedly get her an attorney in the first place. And she claims that she got this attorney and it was for Tory, but magically the attorney turned out to be for Megan because she wouldn't get online and say what Megan wanted her to say. So she felt like she needed protection from her, more so than she needed from Tory. Just saying. Let's not forget that. So reason number 2 would be violation of defendant's right to counsel of his choice. So in the final months leading up to trial, the defense started accusing Sean Holly of bribery thanks to none other than Kelsey, telling them that Tory had told her that Sean Holly had told him to word his offers a certain way when he met with Kelsey the next day after the shooting to return her items left in his car. Interestingly enough, Sean Holly wasn't even Tory's attorney at this time, and there was no charges of him shooting anyone for him to be bribing anyone at her request due to it. Tory allegedly offering Kelsey an attorney is plausible. If she was the shooter, like Tory and his team are saying she was, offering an attorney is not bribery. If anything, it's a guilty conscience because he felt like he caused the entire situation to happen and he was trying to help her out. I mean, they had been hooking up before him and Megan, so it's safe to say he may have cared for Kelsey a little bit, if not as much as he did Megan. Now, the DA was well aware that this was not the truth, and they assured Sean Holly of this before trial. But during trial, her name and this bribery nonsense was brought up at least 3 separate times, causing her to have to fully withdraw as Tory's attorney to not cause any problems for his trial, as it was now a conflict of interest, which caused Tory to go without his primary attorney during the middle of trial. So here's my thing with that. Sean Holly was also on another case, which is why she wasn't at Tory's trial to begin with. But she was still his attorney and she was still on the case. But I doubt her having to retreat as his attorney during trial when she wasn't even there for the actual trial really did any harm. But I don't know that. However, he does have a right to who he wants on his team, and she has a right to not have to make such a choice due to the manipulations of the DA. So that one is a toss-up, but I do understand why it's in there. Moving on to issue number 3. Admission of evidence that shouldn't have been allowed, such as the Shade Room Instagram post from Little Juju Made the Beat. They entered this in as evidence that the gun was Tory's and that the bullets from his gun were matched to the ones in Megan's foot, which was false since, for one, they never even discovered who the gun belonged to, and 2, the bullets disappeared from evidence for any of that to have been true. This was the state's only evidence that the gun was Tory's, by the way. Brilliant, right? Anyway, not only that, but the judge also allowed them to enter in that comment allegedly made by Tory from Tory's Instagram account, claiming that Kelsey was not the shooter. He allowed it to be entered late past the discovery phase, claiming that it wasn't exculpatory, assuming that Tory indeed wrote it, I guess. But that's where he was wrong, because Tory did not write that comment and he wasn't the one logged into his account that day, nor did he give Joshua Ferreras, I'm sorry if I say your name wrong, the assistant who actually was logged into his account, who was the one who actually made that post. And had he been given the right to gather his defense for this late piece of evidence presented at trial, the state would have found this out before they used it to claim that he was the one who said that Kelsey wasn't the shooter. So how could he claim it now as a defense? He could claim it because he never said that she wasn't, which also makes that post from Little Juju and this one about Kelsey all hearsay evidence that shouldn't have been admitted since there was no truth to none of it. Furthermore, the statement Megan gave to detectives about Tory being on probation and already having a gun charge, etc., were proven to be false through the detectives' own investigation and should have never been mentioned as any type of evidence of guilt on Tory's end, which created an image to the jury that he was a criminal, a gun-wielding one at that, although he had no gun convictions. So here's what I have to say about this. Now, in my opinion, these two posts right here should grant him a new trial alone. I'm sorry, but entering in hearsay evidence is inadmissible in California. Evidence is supposed to be entered in for the truth of the matter, not for the speculation of the matter. It's not, I think you did it, or that means you have a doubt that he's guilty. It's supposed to be he did it because the evidence proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that he is guilty. And this evidence definitely made him falsely look guilty. And the DA knew this since they had zero evidence of who the owner of the gun was. Tory's DNA was not found on that gun. They lost the bullets, and they based Kelsey not being the shooter off of an Instagram post not made from Tory that they waited 2 years to even bother looking into, and then brought in late during trial past the discovery phase, which violated the discovery law or whatever that is, which violated Tory's right to a fair trial because he didn't have a chance to bring in witnesses such as Joshua for his defense to that, since they didn't know it was going to be brought up. So let's move on to the next issue. So we've all heard everybody running around here saying that, oh, why didn't he take the stand? Why didn't he testify in his own defense? He had a chance, blah, blah, blah. Okay, great. Well, Tory wanted to testify. He wanted to testify in his own defense for sure. But he was halted by his attorney after the judge said that he would allow the prosecution to bring up his music videos, lyrics, alleged criminal misconduct that hadn't even been proven, his tattoos, etc., to paint him as this criminal if he took the stand. And that law that was recently just passed prevents them from being able to use creative expressions such as that tattoo, which is, I think, paying homage to Tupac, or him chopping up a horse leg in a video called Cap to try and prove their case. None of which should have really even been necessary if they had all of this evidence proving that he was indeed the shooter, which apparently they did not have. Now, what they are going to say is that that law wasn't really passed until January 2023, after the trial was already over. However, it had already been accepted, and they did try to use it at trial so he could testify. But the judge just overlooked it, and he allowed the prosecution to do what they wanted to do. So they declined to have Tory testify just for them to try and dirty him up with irrelevant things to the case instead of sticking to the facts. So we will see how this one goes, as he has a right to not be intimidated into not taking the stand when that law keeps them from trying to use his creative expressions to create I guess what they say, like a racial bias or something to the jury. So what's interesting to me is that lyrics were actually brought up during the trial, thanks to the detective gladly wanting to talk about Cap, but then all of a sudden getting iffy when it came to Kelsey's song Bustin' Back and all the things she claimed about Megan and her song. It was already a clear bias happening with that testimony alone. So the judge may have to consider what he tried to open the door to. I'm just saying, because if we talking about using lyrics, Megan and Kelsey's lyrics are screaming their guilt. So if using Tory's lyrics are supposed to be some type of admission of guilt, then what are theirs? I mean, do y'all really want to start using lyrics in court? Because I don't think Megan and Kelsey would be advocating for that one. Do y'all? Moving on. So last but not least, we have the DNA evidence. Now, this one should be very obvious of why it's an issue, but, let's go over it one more time. So, we all know that there were 4 people in this car with an unregistered weapon. Now, 2 people tested positive for gunshot residue, but only one person's DNA was sent back to be tested. In a case like this, all 4 people's DNA should have been sent off for testing to do a process of elimination, to find out whose gun it could have been, who fired the weapon. Seeing as how they had 2 people come back positive for gunshot residue and 4 people in a car with an unregistered weapon that could have belonged to any of them, why was only one person's DNA tested against the gun? And why was only one person charged for handling that gun? When the DNA on that gun came back as not Tory's, why was nobody else tested against the gun when they found 4 different contributors on it, female and male? Seeing as how there were females and males in that car who all had changed seats during this event outside of Quan, the security guard, how was Tory the only one they set their sights on as the guilty party? Now, not only that, when they got conflicting stories from other witnesses around that didn't match their victim's version of events, why was nobody else investigated? When they saw Kelsey all banged and bruised up from a fight, and they had a witness report of a fight happening between Kelsey and Megan before shots were fired from what seemed to be Kelsey, and it was proven that shots were fired from Kelsey's side of the vehicle, why was Kelsey never looked at or charged for anything related to this situation? They completely, 100% botched the investigation from beginning to end by setting their sights on Tory based on Megan's lying word and doing no process of elimination given the information they had. They never proved whose gun it was for Tory to even be charged with having a gun in the car. If that's the case, all should have been charged with having it, since we have 4 contributors on that gun and 2 people with GSR on their hands. But that didn't happen. So how is he guilty of having an unregistered firearm in a vehicle when the only thing they managed to prove was that it was his vehicle and under a seat both him and Megan had been sitting in? But that's it. They never proved he even handled the gun. All they did prove was that his hands were near it when it went off. But like the expert testified and said, since his DNA isn't on that trigger, it's unlikely he could have been the one shooting the gun, as he would expect it to be there after 5 shots, and it wasn't. So why are we here? Now, I'm sure that they could have added more to this, but to me, this is a very good start because we have way too many know-nothings running around here claiming that the evidence proved that he did it. Everybody said that he did it. He should have testified. He said Kelsey wasn't the shooter. So please, for all of you running around here saying this, exactly what evidence proved he did it? Because as of right now, all we got is a bunch of hearsay evidence and absolutely no evidence that the gun was his or that he was the shooter of it. Hell, at this point, we don't even know where he supposedly shot it from or in which direction, because Kelsey, Megan, and Sean Kelly all have different versions of events. Which one of their stories should we believe exactly? Because it's clear the majority is going with the one that makes them feel more comfortable believing the lie. And I get it, because it's uncomfortable to talk about the differences in Megan and Kelsey's story, because it shatters that belief that you're trying to hold on to of why would a woman lie about something like this? And that answer should be very obvious by now. Because the truth always hides deep within a lie, as a guilty conscience can only hold on to so much. Megan has repeatedly told you all why she lied, and it lies in everything that she got caught lying about. Does it seem like Megan wanted you all to know that she was sleeping with Tory? Did she want you all to know that she had did this behind her best friend / assistant's back after hooking her up with him first? Did she want y'all to know that instead of being honest with Kelsey about liking him, she lied and asked her to stop messing with him because she might have to do business with him and didn't want any drama if they didn't work out? How about Megan getting kicked out of Kylie's that night? How about her being upset over Kylie and Tory flirting? How about her forcing Tory to leave the party after he tried to send her home without him? How about her and Kelsey fighting that night? How about how she got that knot on her forehead, since, according to Megan, she only got shot? Remember? Did it happen when she fell to the driveway? Was it when she was crawling into the driveway that she bumped her head onto something and that's how she got the knot? How about it not being a cat fight over a guy? Because from Kelsey's pictures, it sure looks like what Sean Kelly told police about Megan and Kelsey kicking, punching, pulling hair, and having a violent fight in the middle of the road is more accurate than Tory came over, slapped me, and pushed me to the ground. And then he pulled my hair when I jumped in the front seat of the car to get their attention. Are these two sure that they did not get to fighting that night? Because it damn sure looks like it. And I mean, Kelsey said her and Megan bumped into each other when Tory ordered them out the car, even though Kelsey never even made it past her door to bump into Megan for this statement to make any sense. But I digress. Y'all see where I'm going with this. Nobody wants to talk about these things because they spent 2 years screaming, "Protect black women," when the two women who claim to need protection only seem to need it from each other, and him from them. So at this point, in my personal opinion, all evidence definitely points to Kelsey, or hell, even Megan. And I do believe that Tory definitely deserves a new trial where they actually test all people in that car, especially Kelsey, against that gun, and take out all that bullshit evidence that they presented as guilt. They deserve the right to counter Kelsey and the DA about that 80-minute lead interview in court and bring up the major differences between Kelsey and Megan's story, and to have Tory testify without being threatened with the relevant things to his case. The list can go on. I think his attorneys did a great job with this motion, and I do hope that is granted, as the judge may not have known the backstory to some of these issues brought up when he allowed them to be used in court. However, like they say, most judges don't like to admit fault. And if he allowed all of this in court to begin with, I don't know if he'll be so open to admitting that he may have let a few things slide that he shouldn't have just to get home by Christmas. But who knows? They have listed valid reasons and backed them up heavily with case law, etc. So I would hope the judge would just do the right thing and not have this go to appeal. So let's just hope for the best and remember that this is not over. So with that being said, I want to thank all of those who tuned into this video. I want to send a special shout out to all of those who stayed around until the end of the video. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel, and I will see you guys later. Goodbye.